No. No.
Oh, cry, baby, cry.
No.
Just call on the Lord to say, Yahweh! Yahweh! Oh, come on, Journey. We don't have to do this every single time. We wash your hair.
No.
Come on, babe.
No.
It's not even that nappy like Grandma's.
Nobody woke up expecting a hair washing moment to turn into a full-scale family implosion. But this is the Blueface universe, where even conditioner comes with controversy. 1 minute. Blueface's mom Karlissa is doing what grandmas have done. Since the beginning of time, washing her granddaughter Journey's hair like it's a normal Tuesday. The next minute, the internet is screaming, sides are being picked, and the timeline is acting like a bottle of shampoo just exposed a family secret nobody was supposed to touch. This didn't feel wholesome, it didn't feel innocent, it felt like one of those moments where everyone smiles for the camera while quietly sharpening knives behind the scenes. Because in this family, nothing exists in isolation. Not a haircut, not a visit, not even a rinse and repeat. The Kardashians have turned family tension into an art form. But this made even their petty fights look like daycare disagreements. What should have been a soft, bonding moment turned into a viral lightning rod that exposed unresolved grudges, blurred boundaries, and power struggles nobody wants to admit out loud. And once the clip hit the internet, there was no undo button, because when family drama goes public, it doesn't stay about hair, it becomes about control, access. And who really gets to play the hero? For anyone outside this family bubble, it looked harmless at first glance. A grandmother washing her granddaughter's hair shouldn't register as breaking news, let alone spark a digital firestorm, but this isn't just any family. And this definitely wasn't just any moment. When Blueface's mom Karlissa appeared washing Journey's hair, the internet didn't see soap and water. It saw symbolism. It saw history. It saw a situation layered with tension so thick that even the most innocent act was guaranteed to be interpreted as a move on a very public chessboard in this family. Nothing exists without context, and context is always messy. Karlissa isn't known for quietly existing in the background. She's outspoken, unapologetic, and never shy about her opinions or her presence. That reputation matters because it shapes how people read everything she does. So when the clip surfaced, viewers didn't ask, "Is this sweet?" They asked, "Why is this happening on camera?" Because in the Blueface universe, cameras don't appear by accident. Every recorded moment feels intentional, and intention is where the controversy begins. To supporters, Karlissa looked like a hands-on grandmother stepping in with love and familiarity. To critics, it looked like overreach wrapped in content. The background tension didn't start with this clip. It had been simmering long before shampoo ever touched water. Family dynamics involving Blueface, his partners, and his children have never been simple, private, or resolved quietly. Disagreements play out online, boundaries are debated publicly, and access to children becomes a recurring point of friction. So when Karlissa stepped into that role on camera, it wasn't seen as neutral. It was seen as a statement, whether intentional or not, in a family where every move is scrutinized. Perception matters more than intent. The first reactions rolled in quickly, but they weren't explosive yet. They were cautious, side-eye reactions, comments asking whether everyone involved was comfortable with this being shared. Questions about permission and boundaries flipped into timelines without shouting. People weren't angry yet, but they were alert. The internet has learned to recognize moments that feel bigger than they look, and this felt like one of them. It wasn't the act itself that raised eyebrows. It was the decision to make it public. As the clip spread, the tone shifted. Supporters flooded in, defending Karlissa fiercely. They framed the moment as wholesome, accusing critics of projecting negativity onto something pure. According to them, grandmothers don't need approval to care for their grandchildren. and turning this into drama was proof that people just wanted to hate. That defense was loud and emotional, rooted in the idea that family care shouldn't be policed by strangers with Wi-Fi. But critics weren't focused on the care, they were focused on the camera. Why film it? Why post it? Why invite the internet into a moment involving a child in a family already drowning in public? Scrutiny. Those questions didn't accuse outright, but they implied motive, and once motive enters the conversation, things escalate fast. The clip stopped being about Journey's hair and started being about control, visibility, and who gets to shape the narrative around this child's life in a family where narratives have always been weaponized. That shift was inevitable. Karlissa's history amplified everything. Her past involvement in family disputes made people suspicious of any public gesture. Critics argued that this wasn't just care, it was positioning. A way to show presence, a way to assert closeness, a way to send a message without saying a word. Supporters called that interpretation unfair and cruel, insisting people were reading malice where there was none. But the louder both sides got, the more obvious it became that this moment had touched a nerve that was already exposed. Memes appeared almost immediately, because the internet processes discomfort through humor before it processes truth. Screenshots of the clip were paired with captions joking that even conditioner isn't safe in the Blueface family. Others compared it to reality TV scenes where something mundane sets off a season-long feud. The jokes weren't just for laughs. They were commentary, a way of acknowledging that this situation felt bigger than it should have been, and everyone knew it. As the clip gained traction, old family arguments resurfaced. People started threading timelines, reminding viewers of past disputes, public fallouts, and unresolved issues that made this moment feel charged. The hair wash became a visual anchor for everything that had come before it. Suddenly, it wasn't about what was happening in the clip. It was about what had already happened off camera. And once the past enters the chat, the present doesn't stand a chance. Commentary pages jumped in next, breaking down the moment like it was evidence in a courtroom. Some framed Karlissa as a loving grandmother unfairly dragged into drama. Others painted her as overbearing and strategic, using visibility to maintain relevance and influence. Each take found an audience, because the situation was ambiguous enough to support multiple interpretations. Ambiguity is internet fuel. It keeps conversations alive longer than facts ever could. Subtle reactions from people connected to the family added more tension. Indirect posts, captions that felt pointed without naming names, silence from certain sides that felt deliberate. In public family drama, silence isn't neutral, it's interpreted as judgment, frustration, or restraint. The internet noticed everything: the timing of posts, the lack of comments, the shift in tone. Nothing escaped analysis. At this point, the conversation had fully transformed. This was no longer about a grandmother and her granddaughter. It was about boundaries in families that live online, about whether moments involving children should ever be content, about who gets to claim closeness and who gets accused of crossing lines. People argued fiercely, not just about Karlissa, but about what they believed was appropriate in any family with a public platform. By the time the first wave of reactions settled, it was clear the hair wash hadn't created the drama, it exposed it. The tension was already there, waiting for a trigger small enough to seem ridiculous and big enough to feel personal. The clip didn't invent the conflict. It revealed how fragile the situation already was. And as the internet continued to dissect, debate, and meme the moment, one thing became obvious: this wasn't going to stay a one-off viral clip. It was the opening scene of another chapter in a family saga that never stays quiet for long. Once the clip crossed from curiosity into controversy, the escalation was immediate and unapologetic. This was no longer a quiet debate tucked into comment sections. It became a full-scale internet spectacle where everyone suddenly had a stance, a theory, and a timeline thread ready to deploy. What started as side-eye turned into full-blown outrage for some. while others doubled down on defending Karlissa like she was being unfairly put on trial for being a grandmother. The middle ground vanished instantly because the internet doesn't do nuance when a child and a camera are involved. Memes took over first because memes always arrive before empathy. Screenshots of Karlissa mid-hair wash were paired with captions comparing the situation to reality shows where the smallest act triggers season-long chaos. People joke that even Dove shampoo needs a PR team in the Blueface household. Others compared the moment to those infamous scenes where someone says, "I was just trying to help," right before everything explodes. The humor wasn't accidental. It was how people processed the discomfort of watching a private family dynamic turn into public entertainment yet again. Reaction channels clocked in immediately. Every angle of the clip was dissected like it was evidence in a courtroom drama. Who was filming? Who was present? Who wasn't? Why the camera angle looked intentional? Why the moment was shared instead of kept private? Suddenly, a few minutes of footage turned into hour-long breakdowns filled with speculation, tone analysis, and accusations of hidden motives. It didn't matter that no one could prove intent. Online intent is assumed, not verified. The conversation then widened beyond Karlissa herself and landed squarely on family boundaries. People argued fiercely about what grandparents are entitled to do versus what should be decided by parents. Supporters insisted that a grandmother doesn't need permission to wash her granddaughter's hair, framing criticism as disrespectful and culturally tone-deaf. Critics fired back that caring for a child doesn't require a camera or an audience, especially in a family already under constant scrutiny. That debate struck a nerve because it wasn't just about this family anymore. It was about everyone projecting their own experiences onto the situation. Pop culture comparisons flooded timelines as people tried to contextualize the chaos. Some said this felt like a deleted scene from a reality show that accidentally made it to air. Others compared it to those celebrity family feuds where small gestures are really power plays dressed up as kindness. The Kardashians caught stray shots again, with users joking that even they know when to save content for confessionals instead of posting it raw. The comparisons weren't just jokes. They were shorthand for saying this moment felt staged, whether intentionally or not. As outrage grew, subtle reactions from people connected to the family began to fan the flames. Posts that felt pointed without naming names. Captions that read differently once the clip went viral. Silence from certain sides that suddenly felt loud. In internet culture, silence is rarely interpreted as neutrality. It's read as disapproval, frustration, or strategic restraint. Fans picked apart every post, every emoji, every timestamp, looking for confirmation that this moment had caused real tension behind the scenes. The debate shifted again, this time focusing on motive. Critics questioned whether this was about bonding or branding. Was this a genuine family moment or a calculated display meant to show closeness, involvement, and authority? Supporters called that narrative cruel, accusing people of turning a grandmother into a villain for simply being present. But once motive becomes part of the conversation, the damage is already done. Every future action gets filtered through suspicion, and no explanation feels sufficient. Commentary pages amplified the divide, each choosing a side and framing the story accordingly. Some painted Karlissa as an overbearing figure who thrives on attention and control. Others framed her as a misunderstood matriarch unfairly targeted because of her outspoken nature. Both narratives spread fast because both fit pieces of her public persona. The internet loves a story that confirms what people already think, and this moment gave everyone just enough evidence to believe they were right. Public outrage also pulled the focus toward the child at the center of it all. Viewers began questioning whether moments involving Journey should ever be shared publicly at all. The discussion turned serious for a moment, touching on privacy, consent, and the long-term impact of growing up in front of millions. That seriousness didn't last long before it was swallowed again by hot takes and sarcasm, but it added weight to the conversation. This wasn't just messy, It felt uncomfortable. As the clip continued to circulate, brands and platforms took notice, not with statements, but with silence. Posts stopped being pushed, engagement patterns shifted. In influencer culture, changes in visibility are rarely accidental. Fans noticed immediately and began speculating whether this moment had crossed an unspoken line. Some called it overreaction, others said it was inevitable. Either way, it reinforced the idea that the consequences of this clip weren't limited to online arguments. What made this phase especially volatile was the lack of clarification. No one stepped in to calm the narrative. No explanation came to reset the tone. Instead, there was quiet, and quiet only gives the internet room to get louder. People filled in the gaps with assumptions, theories, and recycled grievances. Old family drama resurfaced, stitched into threads explaining why this moment mattered more than it looked. The hair wash became a symbol, a visual shorthand for everything and resolved in this family dynamic. By this point, the story had fully outgrown its origin. It wasn't about hair, shampoo, or even Karlissa alone anymore. It was about control, visibility, and the cost of living family life in public. Every side felt justified. Every argument felt personal. And as timelines continued to argue, meme, and dissect the moment, one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't a viral hiccup. It was an escalation. A moment that took existing tension and turned it into something impossible to ignore. Setting the stage for consequences no one was ready to fully acknowledge yet. By the time the clip stopped circulating as breaking and started living permanently on people's timelines, the fallout had already settled into something heavier than outrage. This wasn't the kind of viral moment that burns hot and disappears once the next scandal loads. This one stuck because it tapped into something unresolved and uncomfortable that had been brewing long before shampoo ever hit water. The hair wash didn't create a problem. It exposed how fragile the family dynamic already was. And once that fragility went public, there was no way to put it back in the bottle. Public perception of Karlissa shifted in real time, splitting cleanly down the middle. To her supporters, she became a symbol of a grandmother being unfairly attacked for showing care, a woman dragged for doing what grandmothers have done forever. They framed her as misunderstood, targeted, and scapegoated by an internet addicted to turning women into villains. To critics, she became the embodiment of boundary issues. Someone who knows exactly how to stay visible and relevant by inserting herself into moments that should have stayed yet private. Both narratives gain traction, and once a public figure is seen through two opposing lenses at the same time, neutrality disappears forever. The family relationships felt the pressure immediately. Even without public confirmation, familiar faces became less visible. Interactions that once seemed casual suddenly stopped appearing. In influencer families, distance doesn't come with announcements. It shows up as absence. And absence speaks louder than any statement. Fans noticed who stopped engaging, who stopped posting together, and who went quiet right when the noise peaked. That quiet didn't calm anything. It confirmed to many that the clip had hit a nerve behind the scenes. What made the aftermath especially tense was how small the original act was compared to the size of the reaction. That imbalance forced people to confront an uncomfortable truth. If something this ordinary caused this much backlash, then the issue was never the act itself. It was the context. The hair wash became a stand-in for deeper arguments about control, access, and who gets to present themselves as the stable figure in a family that has lived through chaos publicly. And once a moment becomes symbolic, it stops being about intent and starts being about impact. The internet also turned its gaze toward Journey. And that's where the tone shifted again. Viewers who had been joking and meme-making suddenly started asking harder questions about privacy, about consent, about what it means to grow up with every family interaction dissected by strangers. Some argued that moments involving children should never be content, especially in families already surrounded by controversy. Others countered that hiding children doesn't protect them either. The debate didn't resolve anything. But it added weight. This wasn't just messy anymore. It felt morally uncomfortable. Karlissa's next moves were watched closely, not for what she did, but for what she didn't. Every post was analyzed, every silence interpreted. If she spoke, people accused her of doubling down. If she stayed quiet, they accused her of avoiding accountability. There was no winning position left, only damage control and endurance. Once the internet decides you're part of a narrative, it stops waiting for clarification and starts expecting consistency with whatever role it assigned you. The broader impact rippled outward. Commentary pages began framing the situation as another example of family dynamics collapsing under the weight of public exposure. Think pieces popped up discussing how fame distorts boundaries, how caregiving can turn performative once cameras are involved, and how help looks different when it's broadcast to millions. Some framed Karlissa as a cautionary figure. Others framed the entire family as trapped in a system that rewards visibility no matter the cost. Both arguments landed because both felt uncomfortably accurate. Brands and platforms didn't need to speak to be heard. The shift was subtle but noticeable. Less amplification, less engagement. In influencer culture, visibility is currency. And when it dips, people notice. Fans speculated whether this moment had crossed an invisible line, one where content involving children becomes too risky to touch. Others argued the pullback was temporary, just another cycle of outrage management. Either way, it reinforced the sense that this wasn't just a comment section fight. There were real-world consequences, even if they stayed quietly behind the scenes. What lingered most was the sense of expectation. This didn't feel like closure. It felt like a pause before the next escalation. Once a family's private dynamics become public shorthand, every future interaction gets interpreted through that lens. The next visit won't be seen as a visit. It'll be seen as a statement. The next post won't be casual. It'll be analyzed for intent. That's the cost of moments like this. They don't end stories. They change how stories are read. The audience wasn't spared from reflection either. People continued consuming the drama while criticizing it. They demanded better boundaries while refreshing for updates. They condemned exploitation while sharing clips. The contradiction sat uncomfortably in the open, a reminder that outrage and entertainment often coexist in the same scroll. This wasn't just a family drama. It was a mirror held up to how quickly the internet turns ordinary moments into symbols and then punishes everyone involved for not handling them perfectly. As days passed, the clip lost its shock value but gained something else permanent. It became a reference point, the shorthand, a moment people would bring up in future arguments to prove a pattern, whether fair or not. That's how these stories survive. They don't stay loud forever, but they never fully disappear. They resurface when convenient, when relevant, when someone needs a receipt to support a narrative already decided. And that's the real aftermath. Not cancellation, not redemption, but permanent scrutiny, the kind that follows every interaction and strips innocence from even the most mundane moments. The hair got washed, the moment passed, but the implications didn't. This wasn't the end of the saga. It was another layer added to it. Another reminder that in families living under constant spotlight, even the smallest acts can become battlegrounds. The storm didn't destroy anything outright. It exposed what was already fragile and left everyone involved walking more carefully, aware that the next ordinary moment could be the next viral explosion. In the Blueface universe, nothing stays small for long. And after this, everyone watching knows one thing for sure. The next chapter won't announce itself. It'll arrive disguised as something harmless, just like this one did. And this is where you stop pretending this was just a hair wash. Because if it were, the internet wouldn't still be arguing about it. Whether you think Karlissa was being a loving grandmother or crossing a line with a camera rolling, one thing is clear: this moment cracked open way more than a bottle of shampoo. So don't sit there quietly scrolling like this didn't hit. A nerve, smash that like button like it owes you money and a public apology, because the algorithm only responds to chaos. Drop your honest take in the comments, even if it's spicy, because silence is how other people rewrite the story for you. If you're not subscribed yet, you're already late. This channel lives where small moments turn into massive blow-ups. We catch the clips people swear are nothing right before they explode into everything. Turn on notifications, because in this world, the calm moments are usually the setup, not the ending. Share this video with that one friend who says this is being blown out of proportion but somehow knows every detail anyway. You know exactly who that is. Stay locked in, stay skeptical, and keep your eyes open, because this family never gives us finals, only cliffhangers. Around here, we don't ignore the little things. We expose how they turn into big problems. Welcome to Fame Flaws.